All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship here with another video. We specialize in debt payoff model scenarios using something called the velocity method, formerly known as velocity banking, but we can't use that term anymore because it's not allowed by the state of Illinois. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First step in modeling debt payoff is that we have our income, we have our expenses, we have our leftover checking and savings, and then what we have to do is we need to create an expense breakdown where we list every single debt that we have. So all of our debts are in the black font, right, in its own line item, and we have to list the payment associated with debt. And then this one here is your personal expenses not tied to debt that you always have to pay for, even if you were debt free, food, gas, insurance, and all that. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to copy and paste the income and expenses. So we're assuming that the income and expenses are exactly the same, but our checking and savings is going to be zero, right? So a lot of times people are trying to act like they're not impressed because, oh, you're just not saving money. Yeah, but you're just not saving money in a way that makes it easy for you to not save money, right? And then we're going to focus on something called our cash flow. So what is our cash flow? It's just basically the number that our debt gets reduced. So in the average American scenario, the amount that we save is considered to be our cash flow, right? Where in this method, we're considering that the amount that our debt gets reduced to be our cash flow. Okay, so this is why this checking and savings is a big fat zero. And not only that, we need access to a tool called the line of credit. So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. So think about this where you click a button on the bank's website, it literally dumps money into your checking account and you can use it to pretty much pay anything you want, right? Now, certain lines of credit will have certain restrictions. I remember the first home equity line of credit I got. When I went to sign the papers in the bank made me sign that I will not use the line of credit to purchase stocks or business investments or something like that, right? So it depends on your bank, okay? But for the most part, we'll assume with this line of credit, we can use it for anything we want. And technically, a credit card is a line of credit because you can use it, you can swipe it, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. Now, what's funny is whenever sometimes I go on TikTok and then there are people who act like, well, I'm not going to pay the credit card back because I have other expenses that I need to pay for, like electricity, gas, insurance. But, you know, the credit card is or a line of credit is a revolving tool, meaning that whatever is tied to here, you just kind of use, one of the debt tools to cycle your expenses over and over again. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to put our entire paycheck into a line of credit, take our expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again, right? So that's basically what that is, what the final step is. Now, with our debts, what we're going to do is we're going to rank them according to a formula called the cash flow index. So if you don't know what the cash flow index is, it's just basically a formula of the debt amount, 5,000, divided by the payment, and then it gives you a ranking system, right? And so the lower the number, that's the one you want to pay off first because the paying off that debt will give you more bang for your buck. So why is paying off the mortgage a bad idea according to the cash flow index? Is because I literally have to give someone $210,000 for my mortgage to get $1,000 back in my cash flow. So $210,000 mortgage, $1,000 back in my cash flow, right? Whereas I could pay just this credit card and $30,000 and get $1,000 back in my cash flow, right? So which one gives you more bang for your buck? Obviously, the credit card, which is why I'm not going to focus on paying off the mortgage until all my other debts are paid off, because again, we need to pay off our debts. And if you've ever seen the interest on a 30-year mortgage, you're paying 100 to 200% interest, right? So we're not going to do that today, okay? So, all right. So now let's go ahead and get our milestone. So actually, this is what we're tracking to pay off our debt. So what we're going to do is now calculate how much debt we have. And I think I rated this. It should be $92,000 of credit card debt. We're going to take the lowest cash flow index numbers and then 5, 8, 15, 27, 37. And then I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. And so now this is going to be $92,000 of debt. 92,000. So what is it 92,000? Holy balls. Oh no. We need a bigger line of credit. We'll say $100,000 line of credit. Okay, so now, 100,000 line of credit. Okay, so now, 100,000 line of credit. We'll say $100,000 line of credit. We'll say $100,000 line of credit. Okay, so now, 100,000 line of credit. We'll say $100,000 line of credit. Okay, so now We have $92,000 of credit card debt, so let's just do a debt transfer of that 92,000 to a $100,000 line of credit. Now, here's the thing. If you are broke, as a joke, $98 left over, will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit? The answer to that is no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it. They don't lend money to people who need it. And if you need money, the bank's going to laugh you off because you're a huge risk to them, right? So the bank is a risk management institution. The other thing a bank is a leech, right? Leeches need people with blood, aka money. And so if you've been sucked out of your blood by all the other banks, there's nothing for them to suck on, right? So you have to think of it that way, right? Banks aren't your friend. They're not, like, you have to either use them or they use you. That's kind of sad but true, right? So let's go ahead and then take a look here. And so let me just calculate this one more time, make sure I did this right. So 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, and then now 92,000. Yeah. So why do we demonstrate if we have a free and clear line of credit? Because it's so much easier to demonstrate it with a free and clear line of credit than not. I actually have scenarios that are real life case scenarios in the YouTube pay membership where people have like 10 debts, 22 debts, a maxed out line of credit. And then we use that to do this strategy called the velocity method. Now, here's the other thing too. Uh, if you're going to do this in real life, usually you'll have the line of credit before you need it, and then you'll treat it like a maxed out credit card. And so that's why nobody, in real life, almost nobody gets like the opportunity to move the debt into a line of credit that's free and clear. What happens is they have a line of credit maxed out, and then so it just becomes a little bit more difficult, but we can still work with it in many cases. So the final step is now we're not going to save money. We're going to put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, take our expenses out, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So let's go ahead and do that. And then what's our cash flow? Our cash flow is, oh, you know what? I didn't even update the cash flow because after we transfer the debt, guess what happens to these payments here? Zero, 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 zero. Yeah. And so now we go from $98 to $3,153.90, 79 cents, right? And then what we do is we calculate the next month's balance, which is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus the cash flow, so 3153.79. And then what we do is we take the average daily balance, multiply by the interest rate, and then you divide by 12. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we see that in month 31, we got it all paid off, right? So 31 months, and then how much was it? This was 92K. And then now we have three more loans we got to pay off: the student loan, the auto loan, and the mortgage. So what we do here is we just put the current month, right? And then we take follow the cash flow index model. And so you can see that this is auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. Okay. And then what we're going to do is copy this and then move it into the line of credit. So let me just kind of go in here, and then I'm going to copy and paste this, right? And then plus 11045.01. And then what's our new cash flow? Our new cash flow is 395.0. And then here it's 3,500, right? So 3,500. Yeah, let's go ahead and copy and paste that. And then that'll be 3,549.1. Okay. All right. So now 34 months, we have our auto loan paid off. Okay. So let's just write that right here. 34 months. And then that'll be 92 plus 22, 114K. And then we have our student loan and our mortgage. So let's figure out what the balances of these are at 34 months. So we just got to put a 0 here, 34, 34, right? And then now we have the student loan and the mortgage. So one nuance I'm going to tell you is that something that you might hear in other channels that talk about the strategy is always move a loan into a line of credit. And I would say that is probably the most potentially harmful advice you might hear, because in one instance, which is the 30-year mortgage, um, that's probably not going to work, especially if there's a huge interest rate difference between your loan and your line of credit. So if you have a loan, right? If you have a loan and the interest rate is very, very low, let's say 2.875%, 3%, and you decide I'm going to move that whole thing into a line of credit, okay? I'm going to move the whole thing into a line of credit. Well, guess what happens is that you end up paying a lot more interest than you should, because this high cash flow index means that you have to pay a lot of money for itty bitty cash flow. So this itty bitty cash flow is not going to offset the 8% balance that's much bigger than, let's say, in the auto loan where it was only 3%, right? So we have to think about that. Now, for this one, I'm going to be a little bit lazy and then just move this 7% loan into an 8% line of credit, but we definitely don't want to do that in a 30-year mortgage, and I'll show you why. So I'm going to move this student loan into a line of credit, right? And then plus 23502.78. And then, all right, so now this is going to be 0. So we get an extra $348 in our cash flow. Look, our cash flow is almost 4 grand. So let me just go ahead and do this. All right, so that'll be 3897.43. All right, so now, okay, this is 40 months till that student loan is paid off. hmm And then this is going to be 114 plus 30, 144K. And then now the mortgage at 40 months, what is the balance? So it only took us 6 months to pay off that student loan. But you don't want to do this with the mortgage, and I'll show you why, right? So with the mortgage, you actually have two options, okay? So you can do an extra payment, meaning you make the monthly payment, and regardless of whatever method you use, you still have to make the monthly payment, right? Monthly payment, put the cash flow as an extra payment into the line of credit, or into the mortgage, I'm sorry. Or you can put your line of credit or transfer a piece of the mortgage into the line of credit, and we'll just use a number here like 7,000, right? So $7,000, kind of arbitrary number, but I always like to use a number that's comparable to whatever is your income, right? And so what is going to be the effect of doing it this way is that it's going to feel much easier because there's an actual structure that you don't have to think about, right? Doesn't mean you can't use extra payments, right? So but the reality is nobody does extra payments, because if you make someone or something, um, you make it difficult for them because there's some thinking involved. That means most people won't do it. And so, you might be asking, what do I mean by that? Is because when you do extra payments is associated with a constant negotiation battle in your head of how much you're going to spend extra today or the month, right? Because the loan is a one-way street, and because if you overpay the loan directly, you might have to figure out, well, what if I sent too much? Whereas with the HELOC method, where you're just transferring the loan into line of credit, that question never arises of, did I pay too much? Now, you could make an argument like, hey, you might have transferred way too much of loan into line of credit. Yes, that's true, which is why we say just make it a small amount, somewhere like similar to your paycheck, right? Don't put the whole thing, because what your mindset is going to be every single day of the year is that, has my checking account gone to 0? right? Essentially, except for the 1 month where I got to pay the mortgage, has my and possibly any credit cards I use, but has my checking account gone to zero, which is a much easier mindset than how much should I pay extra today. And if you ever experienced this in real life, you know what I'm talking about, right? Especially if you have a mortgage and you never overpaid it, even though you knew that was an option. Like that, it's literally decision fatigue that you have to go through when you're making an extra payment, and that's why most people will never pay off their mortgage. You make things a little bit more difficult than they should be. People won't do it, especially in 2026, when most people are incredibly lazy and they're given the world of information in front of them and they still don't do it, right? So what does this look like right here? I'm just going to show you. Okay. Whoopsie. So let's say we move $7,000 of the loan into the line of credit. Now, if you ever looked at a mortgage amortization schedule, paying off $7,000 in a mortgage takes a freaking long time, right? But you see that we paid it off in 2 years, right? Or 2 months, and then we paid it off in 2 more months. So about a schedule of 2 months, we're paying off that loan. So 21 grand gone, a little bit more than that because we're making the monthly payment as well. But as you can see right here, this is just kind of like an automated system that you're using so that you can wipe out the principal balance without the added troubles of asking yourself how much should I pay today or this month. I'm telling you, like the biggest hurdle of extra payments is not like, oh, it doesn't work or it's bad. It's the fact that most people won't do it because they have that mental fatigue of that of asking themselves how much should I pay extra, right? So that's why I say, I have this table, and this is all psychology, right? But then there's a very 90% of money is actually psychological. There's a reason why, like, they tell you that money is about mindset. I didn't believe that either, but then you kind of, have some experience like, well, that is true. Like every time you make a bad decision in money, it's just because you're a little bit too anxious than you should have been. But yeah, all right. So now let me just kind of show you here with this little calculator how this looks like. All right. So what's our monthly income? So our monthly income is 6,800, which is a lot. Let's be honest, 6,800. It's a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot because of inflation these days. But it is a lot. And then our expenses is everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So that'll be 1,900. And then let's just do what we call a $7,000 chunk. And then the current balance of this is 197,076.17. 197,076.17. Okay, so paid off in 3.6 years. We're good. And we could probably increase like our expenses and it'll still be fine. Like let's do 2,500. I want to see what happens when we do 2,500, right? So look at that. You go from 3.6 years to 4.2. So I think that's worth it. Like you can increase your expenses if you're making this much. I think initially you decrease your expenses because you were on the edge, $98. Like you never go out and then you follow like the Dave Ramsey method of sacrifice, which I would say in certain cases is actually appropriate, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do this 0, and then let's just use the original figure, 1900. So 3.6 years. Okay, so 40 divided by 12 plus 3.6. And then that's going to be 6.93 years, and then we're debt free. Okay, so relatively easy. And we don't even, I mean, compared to our um, debt load, we actually have good income. And look at this. I mean, I always love to show that a mortgage is paid off under like 7 years. Yeah, like, it's crazy, right? Okay, well, that's it for today, folks. This is a Korean Atlanta mentorship here with another video. Let me know your thoughts. I mean, is this your first time watching the video or this type of video? Because like according to YouTube analytics, like 9% of the people in the last 28 days who watch this channel are new. Or if you are not new, let me know what was your experience, what you thought when you first learned about velocity banking. I love hearing those experiences because I don't get to talk to you all directly. All right, so have a great day and I'll see you in the next video.